Hi, everyone. I'm Carli.
And I'm Sophia.
And this is Away She Goes, a podcast from girls who travel.
Each episode will help you feed your wanderlust with travel tips, stories, inspiration, and more. Away she goes. Welcome back, everyone, for another episode of Away She Goes. Today is a destination episode, as you can guess from the title. And we're talking about Vietnam, because that's somewhere that Carli has been in the last year and she wanted to share her experience. Also, it was a girls who travel trip, so you'll learn a bit more about what those look like, what it's like to do group travel with a cool group of girls. I must say I'm a bit jealous because I didn't go. So I should have, yeah, but it didn't work out with my schedule.
One of these days, I'll get you on a trip with me.
Yes, I keep telling you, if we do a Greek or some sort of Mediterranean island adventure, the ones with the boat, I've seen it. They have them on the website.
They do.
That's the one I want. And then we can live out our below deck fantasies.
Our below deck dreams.
Wow. Have we steered off course quickly?
Yeah, it's 2 minutes in and we're off course.
So Vietnam is a country in Southeast Asia. The capital is Hanoi, which is somewhere where Carli also visited. The language is Vietnamese, and the currency is the Vietnamese dong, which apparently to English-speaking people is funny. To me, it's just like, for us, bells go ding dong dong. Like,
oh yeah, no. So dong is like slang for like a penis.
I know that. I just.
So yeah, when we were talking about, like, we would say, oh, this cost 25,000 dong, we all would have a real good giggle for the first like few days of the trip about that. Yeah.
The population is just under 102 million as of September 2024. And let's dive into the more fascinating things. So what made you want to go on this trip, apart from, of course, we know you visiting all of the countries? Like, what made Vietnam special?
So Vietnam, yeah, I had never been to Asia. This is my first time to Asia. So that was something that stood out to me when we were kind of figuring out with G Adventures where we wanted to go. Our first G Adventures trip was to Portugal, which is in Europe, obviously. So we really wanted to do something bigger for this second trip. And I had never been to Asia. I know Asia in general is very, very popular. So we wanted to steer more towards that. And Vietnam's kind of having its moment right now. Like, it's kind of, since COVID and since Southeast Asia has kind of bounced back from COVID in terms of tourism, it's kind of become the new Thailand. Like, people aren't going to Thailand as much. That I've seen, people still are, of course, but Vietnam's kind of this newer, like, ooh, well, we've all done Thailand at this point, let's try something new. Let's go to Vietnam. So it seemed like, seeing posts in the group, it was something that people had a lot of questions about. It seemed like something that people were really interested in going to. So it kind of made the decision pretty easy to kind of have that be our big Asia girls who travel trip.
And what were the places that you visited? Did you fly into the capital, or like, what was the best way to get there?
So the flights are a nightmare. They're so long. We started in Hanoi, which is kind of more in the northern part of Vietnam, and we worked our way south towards Ho Chi Minh City, and we kind of made some stops along the way. So most of us, when we traveled in, flew into Hanoi and then flew out of Ho Chi Minh, because we kind of had traveled down the length of the country and it was too long. Like, people could have booked round trip out of Hanoi, but then you would have had to get all the way back and it would have been a big pain. So most of us flew into one city and flew out of the other because they were just too far. They were too far apart. The flights, though, they're long. They're very long. I can
imagine that gets boring pretty quickly.
Yeah, I was, what did I do? I laid over in Doha, Qatar. So I had, the way back was worse. The way back, I flew 8 hours from Ho Chi Minh to Doha. I had a 12-hour layover in Doha.
Oh, no.
I didn't book that, though. When my friend went on the trip with me, when we booked our flights, the layover was only 4 hours. And then after we booked, it kept getting longer and longer until it turned into a 12-hour layaver. And I was like,
love a good schedule change.
Love that. And then the flight from Doha to New York was like 14 or 15 hours nonstop.
Oof.
So it was a very long couple of travel days coming home for sure.
Yeah, that sounds rough. Yeah. So tell me about Hanoi a little bit. What did you do? What did you see? What did you eat?
We ate everything. So Hanoi is the capital, as you said earlier. We mainly stuck to the old quarter of Hanoi. That's where our hotel was, and that was kind of where all the activities were. It does have a more like modern city section that we went to as well, but the old quarter is really where you get like the authentic, like the motorbikes almost running you over, and like the beeping, and it's crowded. The food is the street food. Um, so we really kind of stuck to the old quarter. Honestly, just you could spend days walking around the old quarter with no plan at all. And you know me, I like to have a plan. Like you could spend days just walking around the old quarter with no plan and just keep coming on stuff to see, food to try, sights to see. There's temples everywhere, that kind of thing. Um,
That sounds exciting.
we went to at one point the Ho Chi Minh Mausoleum, which is just like a big monument. There's a big like parade ground, a big
Ooh.
like grassy area. That was just like a cool sight to see. A really fun thing that we did, we went on it's called a cyclo ride. So there are Vietnamese people who have these bicycles, and then they basically have like a carriage almost in front of their bicycle that you can sit in. It's like a big,
Oh, okay.
yeah, I'll show you a picture. You could sit in it. So you're basically sitting in a seat in the front of their two-wheeled or three-wheeled now bicycle. Are you Googling it?
Yes, I was trying to.
So you sit in it and they bike you around the city. And here's the crazy thing. So traffic there especially in Hanoi, is nuts. There are more mopeds than people. There's more mopeds than cars, and they do not. There are rules, but nobody follows them. Like crossing the street, I'm not kidding, was probably the most dangerous thing that we did while we were there. And it's no joke. Like they will hit you. They will not stop. They
Oh,
will
yeah.
weave around you. If you make one wrong move, if you hesitate, they will hit you. So
Yikes.
you're on a cyclo, right? You're on this bike and you're just in traffic. You've got mopeds and cars
Oh,
just like
God.
zoom, zoom, beep, 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 like whizzing around you, and you're like, you're
Oh,
just
that
like
will give me
kind of out in the
anxiety.
open. So I did that. My friend did it with me. It was like an hour around the city. It was so interesting. Like you kind of just sat and like looked around. I was like, well, I hope nobody hits me.
And for our listeners, again, a description of the cyclobike. It's a bit like a wheelchair replaces the front wheel of a bike, kind
Uh,
of, but a
kind
bit more
of.
comfortable.
Yeah, it's basically a seat with a wheel on it that's the front of the bicycle, and then the person is on the bicycle behind you, just pedaling around
Yeah.
like normal, and you're kind of sitting on the front of in the front of their bike, wheeling around. My favorite thing that we did in Hanoi was the foodie tour. So obviously Vietnam is known for its cuisine. It's pretty highly regarded as like one of the better cuisines in the world. So we had a
Yes.
tour all around Hanoi where our tour guide, I think there were like 8 or 10 different places that we stopped, and we got to try food along the way. We got to see how it was made. We got to learn about it. We had, oh my God, we had egg coffee. We had like sticky rice and coconut ice cream. That was my favorite. We had like Hanoi
Mm.
beer. So we stopped at like, yeah, like 8-ish different spots and just kind of sampled the food. We had banh mi, which are a famous Vietnamese sandwich. We just kind of went through and we took a couple hours and just kind of walked around the old quarter, and our tour guide obviously knew like the good places to go, and we stopped at like 8 different places and just tried all sorts of different stuff. So that was, I think, my favorite thing we did in Hanoi.
That sounds really nice. I myself also really like Vietnamese food because next to my office there's a really good vegan Vietnamese place. Because I don't know
Mm.
what it is, but whenever I look for like Asian kitchen that's vegan, it's always Vietnamese, which
They
is
use a
fine by
lot
me
of
because they're amazing. So
like coconut, like kind of like Thai. They use a lot of coconut milk and stuff, so
mhm.
it's easy to make it
Yeah.
vegetarian or vegan for sure. We actually on our tour had one or two, at least one vegetarian, but I think there were two, and they both had no problems at all finding things to eat the entire trip very
Nice.
easily.
So where did you go from Hanoi?
So from Hanoi, we went to Ha Long Bay, which is probably one of the more famous locations in Vietnam. A lot of people have probably seen pictures of Ha Long Bay and maybe don't realize it. And we actually spent overnight there on what's called a junk boat. So we got to Ha Long Bay, we got on our boat. It was just our tour group on the boat, so it was really nice. So the boat had little bedrooms and bathrooms and a dining room and also, out upper deck and that kind of thing. And we basically spent the evening and the night in Halong Bay on the boat. So that was a really cool experience. And then the next morning we went to what was called Surprise Cave. So we kind of got to hike through this cave. You climbed up like, I'm not kidding, like 100 stairs. So you got a really good like panoramic view of the bay. We took tons of pictures. We could go kayaking. Some of our group, it was really cold actually that day. It was kind of cloudy and cold the day that we were in Halong Bay. So only like 3 or 4 of our group chose to do the kayaking because they were like, listen, like you're gonna get wet. And it was so weird. They were wearing like long sleeves, long pants because it was cold. But a few of them were like, no, we're going kayaking. So people went kayaking. Those of us who didn't go kayaking, we met them on a beach. We took a boat, a smaller boat, and met them on a beach, took a bunch of pictures, walked around the beach. A few people went swimming in the water. Most of us didn't because it was cold. But again, some people were like, I'm here, I'm getting in, no matter what.
Oh yeah, that would have been me. Also with the kayaks. 100%.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. My best friend was there with me and she loves kayaking and she goes, I don't care how cold it is. Like, I am not coming all the way here and not going kayaking. And I was like, you go, girl, I will meet you there.
Yes, that's the
I will
spirit.
meet you there. And she did. And she said that was her favorite day of the whole trip was Halong Bay. She loves kayaking and she got to go there. And I was like, nope, I will take the boat. I will take the boat and I will meet you at the beach. You can go kayaking. That's fine. So yeah, Halong Bay was really, really pretty. It was definitely visually everything it's cracked up to be. So from there we kind of did so we were in Hanoi, we went to Halong Bay and then went back to Hanoi because we had to catch an overnight train in Hanoi.
I see.
Yes, the overnight train to go to Hue. So the overnight train, I think we all knew obviously going into the trip that this was on the itinerary, but I think everybody was the most nervous about the overnight train because if you Google Vietnamese overnight trains, what you see varies from like tolerable to downright like scary, and you don't know what you're going to get. So we all kind of just braced ourselves and we're like, all right, this night's going to be long. This night's going to potentially be uncomfortable. We're going to do it. It's going to be an experience. We were on that train for about 14 hours.
Fun.
It is. Yeah, no, we got on the train in Hanoi at like 7 or 8 at night, got off the train in Hue at like 9 or 10 the next morning. We were on the train for a solid like 14 hours. I'm speaking from our experience. Our train was pretty good. Our train was very clean. The bathroom situation is always something that people are worried about. Ours, I mean, obviously, like anybody who's been on like a long train ride or a long flight knows, like towards the end of the trip, it does get a little, a little dirty. But for the most part, our bathroom was very clean. Our beds were clean. Our rooms were clean. Very cramped though. So in a single room, there's 4 of you and you're in bunk beds. So all of us, most of us were in double rooms. Some people had single rooms like over the course of the trip, but we had to like find buddies for the train. So there were 4 of us in one little compartment. And it was like a giant sleepover. Like all of us had bought before we got on the train, had bought drinks, had bought snacks. And we all were like, there was one traveler, she bought like 2 or 3 bottles of wine. And she's like, well, I can't drink these all myself. So everybody would go to their room and she would like, you bring like an empty water bottle and she would like pour wine into your water bottle for you. She had like 3 bottles of wine. Everybody was sharing beer and sharing snacks and it was like a big sleepover. Like in my compartment, the 4 of us I'm not kidding, told ghost stories for like 2 hours. We literally sat there and like told ghost stories and I'm like, oh, this is fun. And yeah, we were like going up and down the hallway, like seeing everybody's rooms and saying hi to everybody and taking a ton of pictures. So as uncomfortable as you're in a tiny bed, the bed is hard as a rock, like as uncomfortable physically as it was, it really was a lot of fun. And the bathroom situation was clean. The sheets were clean. Like it was very clean overall. So I had a positive experience on the train, which was nice because we were all very worried about it going in.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. So where did the train took you to Hue?
Hue, yeah. Hue, yeah. So we were only in Hue for a day. So it was a quick stop. But yeah, the train stopped there and we saw the Imperial Palace, which was really, really stunning. We got to see a bunch of like Vietnam War sites. That was kind of a big place where the war was in Vietnam. So we got to see a lot of sites. Some people on our tour actually had the opportunity in Hue to take a motorbike tour. Some of us didn't want to do it because some of us, myself included, were too nervous to get on the back of a motorbike. But most of our tour did. I would say probably 10 or so of the 15 or 16 of us. And basically, they all had a motorbike with a driver, and they hopped on the back, and the guys drove them around the city on the back of the motorbike. Oh, they had no, they had so much fun. I know. I could see the face you're
Okay,
making.
no. I'd be like you. I'd be like, no, thank you. I choose
I
life.
was. It looked fun, but I was like, I just could not. Like leading up to the trip, I kept thinking, like, do I want to do this? Do I want to do this? I just couldn't bring myself to do it. But most people did it, and they had a blast. They went to like a little incense village while they were there. I did too in Hanoi. I got to Hanoi a few days early with my friend, and we did a few things before we met up with the tour, but they got to go see an incense village, which was really pretty. No, they had like we would see them like because it would be like everybody who was doing the motorbike tour would take their motorbikes and we would meet up at the different spots. So those of us that were on the coach, would meet them and they would get there and their hair was all, and they were like, oh my God, they were giggling. They had the time of their lives on those motorbikes.
Nice. And I'm assuming no one got hurt.
Nope, not that I know of. No, they
Nice.
all had a good time. So that was Hue. We were only there for a day. And then we went to Hoi An next. And we were at this point, we're off the trains. We're just in like our private like bus thing at this point. So we were in Hoi An actually the longest. We were in Hoi An, I think, for 3 full days out of everywhere. And Hoi An is really famous for its tailor shops. So a lot of people going into Hoi An were planning, like they had pictures on their phones. Like you can go into a tailor shop and show them things you want, and they will custom make your clothes for you in like 2 days. So
Amazing.
a lot of people on the trip went into Hoi An with stuff that they wanted, and they went to tailor shops and got fitted. And the only thing I didn't do that, the main reason is this: once you do that, you have to keep going back for, them to try stuff on and stuff like that. So I personally, my grandfather was also a tailor growing up. So for me, I was like, okay, like it wasn't
that.
Right. It wasn't exciting to me, but I get why it was exciting to other people. But I didn't want to spend my days like having to worry about like having to go back and like getting fitted and that kind of thing. But a lot of people did. A lot of people got some really, really cool clothes that they were really happy with. So that was a big thing in Hoi An. The other big thing in Hoi An that we did as a group was a noodle making class.
Ooh.
So G Adventures, one of the reasons that we partner with G Adventures is because they really, on every trip that they do, try to give back to the community as much as possible. So this restaurant that we went to was basically like a center for like underprivileged youth and like teenagers in the area, people who kind of grew up in like troubled homes, didn't really have kind of a path. And they would bring them in and they would train them and teach them how to make these noodles, how to work in the restaurant. And then they would be able to get jobs at other restaurants and things like that. So we did a noodle making class there. We learned how to make all sorts of different like Vietnamese noodles. It was like an hour or so class. We got to make stuff. We got to eat the noodles that we made and like the dishes that we made. So that was a really fun moment as well. And then my favorite thing about Hoi An is the lanterns. So the whole city, the city's on a river. The whole city is just lanterns everywhere.
Aww.
Every night in the river, the boats go out and they have all these colored lanterns lit up on them. It is beautiful. It is like the river is just full of colored lanterns and boats, and you can actually go out. My friend and I did. You go out on a boat and you can like light a candle or put a lantern in the water, and then they clean it up afterwards. And you're supposed to like make a wish or like be thankful for something cool. So like we went on like a little boat ride. My friend and I also did a lantern making class. We had a lot of free time in Hoi An. So while a lot of people were doing like tailoring and stuff like that, my friend and I actually went and did a lantern making class. And we made matching lanterns. We both have them now, like hanging up in our apartments. Yeah, we made like matching lanterns. So we have them. We brought them home. But yeah, Hoi An was definitely, I would say, more westernized, more geared towards tourists than the rest of Vietnam. Like the food was more like you could get cheeseburgers and pizza. They were not good. I'm sorry. They were not. It's not good. But the food, you could also get obviously authentic, but it was much more to me of like a touristy experience than being somewhere in like Hanoi where you're getting like the very authentic Vietnamese experience. Hoi An was much more touristy and geared more towards like Western tourists. But it was still honestly, it was my favorite spot because I love the lanterns.
And from there, like that was pretty much almost the entire time. Like how much time did you spend in total in Vietnam?
We were in Vietnam. I think the tour itself was 9 days or 10 days.
So we're almost at the end now.
We're almost at the end. Yeah. So by the time we got to Ho Chi Minh, we only actually had one full day in Ho Chi Minh. We were supposed to have like 1.5 or 2, but we flew from Hoi An to Ho Chi Minh and our flight got delayed. Luckily, it got delayed like before we were at the airport. So we knew it wasn't like we were stuck at the airport for 8 hours. Like we just knew to get to the airport. But it sucked because by then we landed in Ho Chi Minh late at night and then only had the full day the next day to be there. And that was it. Whereas before we were supposed to land like early in the morning that first day. So we were supposed to have almost 2 full days there. And we really only had one. So a lot of us were like, oh shit, like we all had stuff we wanted to do and we had to try to kind of prioritize. So the main thing that we did with our tour group was we went to the Coochie tunnels, which we all also laughed about. And these were like an underground tunnel system that were used during the Vietnam War. And you kind of learned about how like the Vietnamese soldiers would. It was definitely very somber. Like it was not like a fun woo, it was learning how like the soldiers would like trap and like torture like American soldier. Oh yeah, no, it was very dark. But it was something that the tour obviously went to because it is an important site. And then after that, we kind of had the rest of the day to explore on our own. So my friend and I went to the Saigon Sky Deck, which is a big, tall skyscraper with like an observation deck on the top, and you have like 360 panoramic views. So we went up there kind of late afternoon. So it wasn't full sunset, but it was starting to be sunset. So we kind of got that view. And then several of us did a really cool dining in the dark experience. So we found this restaurant and it was really interesting. So you go in, you have no clue. You do like a tasting menu. You have no clue what's on the menu. They do not tell you. All they tell you is we're not going to feed you like eyeballs or something crazy. Like that's all that they tell you. You have no clue going in. You're in a room, you're at your table. It is completely dark. Cannot see your hand in front of your face. Dark. Oof. And this is the really interesting part. All of the servers are blind because they can. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So it's really cool that they all are employed here because it's somewhere that they can work very easily without, because you can't. It's pitch black.
No big adjustment for them.
So it's really interesting. Like they'll teach you like when you sit down, because you're like, oh my God, I can't see anything. And they'll kind of talk you through, okay, like feel where your silverware is and feel where your glass, your drinking glass is and you notice as you're eating, as you're there, we were there for probably an hour and a half. The longer you're there, the more comfortable you get. Like you just kind of learn, okay, here's where my glass, you're not like feeling around for everything. Like you got more comfortable as you were there. And then you do a tasting menu. They come by and they put your plates in front of you and they say, okay, like there's 3 little things in front of you, eat from left to right. Like they tell you everything. And, you're talking with your friends and you're trying to guess, like, what are we eating? Like you're trying to figure out what it is you're eating and you have no idea. And then at the end, they bring you back out into like the lit kind of waiting area. And somebody sits down with you with an iPad and shows you pictures and explains all the dishes that you ate. So you're like, oh yeah, remember you tasted basil? Well, yeah, you did. And remember what you thought was an apple? Well, it was actually a pear. And like, it's really cool. So a lot of us did that. Like 5 or 6 of us did that. And then we had our actual farewell dinner that we all went to, but a few of us really wanted to try that dining in the dark place. So
nice. That really sounds cool. Fun. And I know we also have that in Hamburg.
Do you?
Yeah, we do. Also,
have you ever done it?
That blind people working there to like, because I think they also have a tour before that, and then you can have a dinner or not. No, I haven't done that.
You should. It's really cool. It's really cool. And that was it. Yeah, we woke up the next day, and we had our farewell dinner, and then the next day was departure day. So we all went our separate ways from there. But it was a really, really epic trip for sure. We saw a lot of the country and got to do a lot of really cool stuff.
That sounds really fun.
And that was my Vietnam experience.
Nice. Thank you for sharing.
Of course.
Are there any upcoming trips that our listeners maybe, if now they decide, well, group trip sounds more fun than I had anticipated, let's do it because I don't have to worry about the damn itinerary. Where can they still sign up for?
Absolutely. So we have three, as of now, we have three upcoming Girls Who Travel trips.
And they may or may not be booked out by the time you listen to this.
Yeah, by the time this is recorded, they hopefully will all three be sold out. But we always keep a waiting list. There's always a chance that somebody can't go for whatever reason. So even if they're sold out, make sure you get on our waiting list. I have filled all three of the trips that I've done, Portugal, Vietnam, and Africa. I have filled spots from the wait list. So all hope is not lost. If it's sold out, get yourself on the wait list. There's still a chance. So by the time you all are listening to this, I will have also done Africa, an African safari. That trip takes place in October of 2024. So again, by the time this episode's out, I will have done that. Stay tuned because we will have a destination episode on that as well. I'll talk about that whole trip. But for now, we have an upcoming trip to Morocco in April of 2025. We have a trip to Costa Rica in July of 25. That one's really exciting because that one's actually a family trip. So all of our trips so far have only been for women. And, if you want to bring your husband or there's age restrictions, this Costa Rica trip is being done for families. So you can bring your husband or your boyfriend, you can bring your children. So you're going to get to travel with not only your family, but like other families as well. The person leading it on our team is bringing her husband, her daughter. So it's going to be a family trip, which is not something we've ever done before. And then finally, we are doing a Peru trip in September of 2025. So those are kind of the three that we have upcoming right now. We're always thinking of more. So if there's places that you want to go, let us know. But we have some other big ones potentially coming down the line. But these three right now are the next three that we're doing.
Nice. So that's all that we have for you this episode. Thanks again for listening. If you need any more information, listen to the proper outro that's going to play now.
That's all for this episode. If you'd like more Away She Goes in your life, make sure to stop by girlswhotravel.org/podcast. That's where you can fill out a form if you're interested in being a guest on the show. You can also write to us at awayshegosgwt@gmail.com or leave us a message on our Google voicemail from any phone or computer at 1-563-503-6323. To follow our adventures, you can follow me on Instagram. I'm at Carli Sees the World. Carli is spelled Carli.
You can also follow me at Sophia AEZ, Sophia with a PH. Away She Goes is part of Girls Who Travel, a community dedicated to radically redefining travel to be inclusive, sustainable, and empowering. You can learn more about GWT, find travel tips and support, shop travel-themed items made by GWT members, and join our Facebook group with nearly 100,000 women all around the world at girlswhotravel.org. We can't wait to connect and explore with you. Away she goes.